The well-known Take Me Home Country Roads singer John Denver used his songs to depict nature, hope, and small pleasures. But after his untimely death, a secret conflict surfaced, a financial meltdown that would cause years of hardship and great sorrow for his family. Get ready to learn how the money he intended for his loved ones instead turned into a protracted and agonizing struggle. In October 1997, the day was sunny and clear. Experienced pilot John Denver, who was well known for his love of the open air, took off in his experimental aircraft. He was flying over the calm seas of California's Monterey Bay. Then, suddenly, the unimaginable occurred. At the age of 53, his long, simple model plane abruptly nosed into the Pacific Ocean, taking his life. The abrupt loss of a musical legend sent shockwaves around the world. However, the sorrow of his passing was just the start of a new storm. Following the collision, a startling reality emerged that would plague his family for years to come. John Denver passed with an enormous wealth of $19 million. His songs were about serenity and simple pleasures. His family's future appeared to be assured by the enormous sum of money amassed during decades of successful songs and performances. But there was a catch. One small mistake could convert this good fortune into a complicated nightmare. John Denver left no will when he passed away. As a result, his money and possessions were now entangled in a convoluted legal web, rather than having their wishes explicitly stated. Who gets what would be determined by the law, not by his wishes. Due to the unexpectedness of his passing, and the absence of a will, his loved ones were immediately thrust into a time of great sorrow, which was made worse by crippling financial uncertainty. The very prosperity that was supposed to bring solace, instead, became the cause of a protracted, excruciating conflict. What was going on above Monterey Bay in those last moments? The accident was thoroughly examined by the National Transportation Safety Board, or NTSB. Burt Rutan, a talented aeronautical engineer who built the Voyager, the first aircraft to fly around the world without stopping for fuel, created the unique Long EZ that John Denver was flying. However, the builder of this specific Long EZ had made adjustments that resulted in a fatal vulnerability. A fuel selection valve on the aircraft allows the pilot to select which fuel tank to utilize. This valve was conveniently located on the front panel, in Burt Rutan's original design. However, it was extremely difficult to reach because the builder had positioned it behind the pilot's left shoulder on John Denver's aircraft. The valve itself was difficult to turn and stiff, which made the situation worse. To make it easier to reach, John Denver and a maintenance worker had even attempted to expand the handle using pliers. John Denver had flown the aircraft the day before and had been briefed on its systems, including the fuel system, for 30 minutes on the day of the crash. The fuel selector was set on the right tank, which held around 12.5 gallons of fuel, and the plane had about 19 gallons when it left Santa Maria. When the engine ran out of gasoline, the NTSB discovered that it had stopped. John Denver probably attempted to exchange fuel tanks as the engine began to splutter. He would have needed to support himself by pressing his right foot all the way down on the rudder pedal in order to reach the difficult-to-reach valve. The plane veered suddenly to the right and plunged into the water from just a few hundred feet in the air. As a result of this move, and his focus being taken away from operating the aircraft, according to the NTSB, John Denver's attention being diverted from flying and his inadvertent usage of the right rudder while attempting to adjust the fuel handle were the primary causes of the disaster. John Denver's lack of familiarity with the aircraft, the builder's placement of the fuel selector, the unmarked and difficult-to-read fuel gauges, and his lack of training for this kind of aircraft were other contributing factors. By removing the gasoline lines from the cockpit, the builder attempted to make the aircraft safer. However, this led to more risky issues. The anguish of John Denver's unexpected death was only the start. His fortune became a source of worry and stress for those he left behind as a result of the protracted legal struggle that ensued. The estate of a person who passes away without a will must go through a procedure known as probate. In this protracted legal proceeding, a judge determines how John Denver's $19 million estate should be divided. It took a startling 6 years for this process to be resolved in court. Consider the strain on a bereaved family who must endure 6 months of uncertainty and growing legal bills, while attempting to come to terms with their tremendous loss. A significant dispute broke out with the Internal Revenue Service, or IRS, as if the drawn-out legal proceedings weren't enough. According to the IRS, his estate was worth $2.5 million more than what was first stated, meaning the family allegedly owed an additional $1.5 million in taxes. Additionally, the government agency thought his management company and record label were worth twice as much as the estate had calculated. The truth came to light after years of back and forth. In actuality, the IRS had inflated the asset's worth. A few years later, the estate unexpectedly received a $600,000 tax return. Even though this was a good thing, it cost a lot of money. The family had spent 6 years in court and faced significant tax and financial difficulties. A crucial question hung in the air, and they had no desire to steer it. Who would get the millions? The family will experience heartaches and troubles as a result of the law's intervention. California law stipulated that John Denver's children would receive all of his possessions because he was not married when he passed away. John Denver's first wife, Annie Martell, adopted 2 of his children, Zachary and Anna Kate, while his second wife, Cassandra Delaney, had his biological daughter, Jessie Bell. The challenging and emotionally exhausting task of overseeing his estate was assigned to Annie Martell, his first ex-wife. Once the subject of his well-known Annie song, Annie now had to deal with the difficult challenge of navigating his financial legacy. She gave each of the 3 kids an equal share of the assets. Her portion was prudently put into a special trust to safeguard his youngest child, Jessie Bell, who was 8 years old. Since guardianship decisions for minors might be left to the court in the absence of a will, this was an essential step to secure her future. Intriguingly, John has demonstrated considerable foresight throughout his life. In fact, when his 3 children were born, he had established separate trusts for his mother, father, and first ex-wife Annie, each totaling $7 million. This demonstrated a definite desire to support specific loved ones. But there was a conspicuous lack of it, a sharp reminder of suffering in the past. He didn't create a trust for Cassandra, his second ex-wife. Their highly contentious and well-publicized divorce, which had caused them both much mental distress, was the direct cause of this purposeful omission. However, how did John Denver amass such a huge fortune that would subsequently lead to so much unrest? His path started in a youth marked by frequent travel and a strong bond with nature, far from the bright lights of fame. His story started when Henry John Deutz Kondorf, Jr. was born in Roswell, New Mexico, on December 31, 1943. The family moved around a lot because his father, Henry John Deutschendorf Sr., was a pilot and colonel in the U.S. Air Force. Among the various locales that young John lived were Arizona, Alabama, Oklahoma, Texas, and even Japan. He developed a lifetime love of music when he was 8 years old and received an antique Gibson guitar from one of his grandmothers. He has some of his best childhood memories of sleeping under the stars, playing with animals, and listening to country music on his other grandmother's farm in Corn, Oklahoma. He began playing music while attending Texas Tech University to study architecture. He made money by playing guitar in a band, singing in a trio, and doing solo performances. But music was his passion. Thus, in 1964 he dropped out of school and relocated to Los Angeles. Around this time, his desire to dwell in the mountains led him to choose Denver as his stage name. He performed folk tunes and played an acoustic guitar at the Lead Betters Club in Los Angeles. Additionally, he became a member of the Back Porch Majority. When he took over as lead singer of the well-known folk ensemble, the Chad Mitchell Trio, in 1965, he got his first significant break in New York City. From 1965 to 1968, he recorded pop and folk tunes, played guitar and banjo, and sung with them. He met his first wife, Annie Martell, while playing with this trio at her college. They were married in 1967. His ability to write songs quickly became evident. He penned the #1 hit song, Leaving on a Jet Plane, in 1967, which Peter, Paul, and Mary recorded and made famous. He signed with RCA in 1969 as a result of his breakthrough. Take Me Home, Country Roads, released in 1971, became his first single to sell 1 million copies. With multiple gold and platinum records, John Denver rose to the top of the American recording charts during the 1970s. In pop, folk, and country music, he was a popular crossover star who appealed to listeners of all ages and genres. About 200 of the roughly 300 songs he recorded were his own compositions, and his discography featured 33 albums and singles that sold over 33 million copies and won gold and platinum honors. His love of nature, distaste for the city, love of music, and relationship experiences were all frequently reflected in his compositions. In addition to his skill as a musician, John Denver was a gifted actor who starred in the 1977 film, Oh God, opposite the renowned George Burns. He produced a number of well-known television specials, such as the iconic Christmas program, featuring Jim Henson's Muppets, and the Emmy-winning An Evening with John Denver in 1975. These business endeavors greatly increased his riches and notoriety. After the 1970s, his career waned, but he was admitted to the Songwriters Hall of Fame in 1996. His magnificent Aspen House was one of his most treasured belongings. On 2.6 acres in the upscale Starwood Enclave high in the Colorado mountains, he had this enormous 735-square-foot home, custom built in 1972. This was more than just a house in the Rocky Mountains. He was greatly impressed by this haven, which even influenced the composition of his well-known song, Starwood and Aspen. It served as both his shelter and legacy. This unique residence was incorporated into the evolving financial landscape following his passing. It sold for $3.68 million, then again for $2.75 million in 2016, and following renovations. It was listed for $11 million in 2019. His interests also turned into strong points. He was well renowned for his love of flying, which unfortunately ended when his experimental Long EZ plane crashed. He was a gifted photographer as well, taking pictures while traveling, and even exhibiting his work in a professional setting. His personal belongings, including his guitar collection, were very valued. Handwritten song lyrics, guitar straps. His stage used 1994 Taylor 12-string and 6-string acoustic instruments, and even money clips from golf tournaments were eventually sold after his death. He also received significant honors, including the Australian Gold Disc Award. Even though they all added to his wealth, they were all pieces of the intricate jigsaw his family had to solve. However, there was a hidden cost to this wealth, and the life that created it, a personal pain that would also cause his loved ones to cry. Beneath the public grin, John Denver's family had dark, agonizing secrets that would only deepen their grief upon his death. It was very painful for him to divorce Cassandra Delaney, his second wife. Cassandra spoke up even before he passed away, disclosing a tumultuous marriage characterized by frequent drinking, jealousy, bullying, and threats. She stated that he attempted to ruin our family and portrayed him as a man who may be a control freak. Court expenses alone amounted to $3.3 million during the dramatic and expensive battle for custody of their daughter, Jessie Bell. Since all of the credit cards were in Jay's name, Cassandra even had to borrow money from a friend in order to pay her legal bills. "He threatened to take Jessie away from me," she said, "and he watched me go and fall to the ground, empty-handed." She also said that he reduced her child support because she was content and her business was taking off, which led to her frequent court appearances. These pre-death remarks demonstrate how severe and serious the family's financial and emotional suffering was already. Cassandra felt obliged to speak up, because you have to say enough when someone like John is continuously threatening and disrespectful. For a long time she had been in shock and denial, attempting to keep the marriage intact and keeping her feelings of failure a secret. She believed that by showing love and compassion, she could transform my man. She took a long time to acknowledge that I truly deserved to be loved without conditions, and that this was abuse. After Jessie was born, John got envious and felt that nothing I did was right, which was the turning point in their marriage. She said that John's ego overcame him, and that he lacked the empathy to say, "We need to find a way to make this work," when he abruptly sought a divorce and told her, "I want a divorce, and I don't want you in my house." He claimed she posed a physical threat and even filed for a restraining order. She said he was an angry man and a very, very bitter man. The idea of a vengeful bully making that threat and coming close to doing it due to their wealth and influence frightened her. "He has been a fantastic bully," she said in closing. "His actions have been terrible, and he has done everything in his power to ruin our family. I've had enough and will no longer tolerate this." His second marriage wasn't the only source of his problems. He revealed a startling experience from his first marriage. John was so furious during a property settlement with Annie that he almost strangled Martell before splitting their marriage bed in two with a chainsaw. Remembering that Annie's song, one of his most cherished and gentle compositions, was composed for Annie Martell following an emotional breakup, encapsulating a moment of reconciliation and intense love, creates a striking contrast. After they had recently patched things up, he wrote it on a ski lift high in the Colorado Rockies, fusing the grandeur of nature with his romantic love. What then may have been different in this depressing tale? The solution is straightforward but sadly ignored: a document, a will that would have spared his family millions of dollars in legal fees and years of suffering. Despite his enormous riches and complicated family circumstances, John Denver passed away without this important paperwork. "He threatened to take Jessie away from me," she said, "and he watched me go and fall to the ground, empty-handed." She also said that he reduced her child support because she was content and her business was taking off, which led to her frequent court appearances. These pre-death remarks demonstrate how severe and serious the family's financial and emotional suffering was already. Cassandra felt obliged to speak up, because you have to say enough when someone like John is continuously threatening and disrespectful. For a long time, she had been in shock and denial, attempting to keep the marriage intact and keeping her feelings of failure a secret. She believed that by showing love and compassion, she could transform my man. She took a long time to acknowledge that I truly deserved to be loved without conditions, and that this was abuse. After Jessie was born, John got envious and felt that nothing I did was right, which was the turning point in their marriage. She said that John's ego overcame him, and that he lacked the empathy to say, "We need to find a way to make this work," when he abruptly sought a divorce and told her, "I want a divorce, and I don't want you in my house." He claimed she posed a physical threat and even filed for a restraining order. She said he was an angry man and a very, very bitter man. The idea of a vengeful bully making that threat and coming close to doing it due to their wealth and influence frightened her. "He has been a fantastic bully," she said in closing. "His actions have been terrible, and he has done everything in his power to ruin our family. I've had enough and will no longer tolerate this." His second marriage wasn't the only source of his problems. He revealed a startling experience from his first marriage. John was so furious during a property settlement with Annie that he almost strangled Martell before splitting their marriage bed in two with a chainsaw. Remembering that Annie's song, one of his most cherished and gentle compositions, was composed for Annie Martell following an emotional breakup, encapsulating a moment of reconciliation and intense love, creates a striking contrast. After they had recently patched things up, he wrote it on a ski lift high in the Colorado Rockies, fusing the grandeur of nature with his romantic love. What then may have been different in this depressing tale? The solution is straightforward but sadly ignored: a document, a will that would have spared his family millions of dollars in legal fees and years of suffering. Despite his enormous riches and complicated family circumstances, John Denver passed away without this important paperwork. His assets could have been dispersed swiftly and amicably, without the need for protracted IRS battles or court battles if he had a properly drafted will. His family could have avoided lengthy legal proceedings, as well as significant tax and financial difficulties that took up 6 years of their lives. Moreover, his particular desires could not be carried out in the absence of a will. For instance, ardent environmentalist John Denver had bought land in Colorado with the express purpose of keeping it permanently as an open area and animal sanctuary. Unfortunately, this treasured land was sold because its purpose was not explicitly mentioned in a will. His family and admirers, who appreciated his conservation efforts, were surely disappointed by this result, which was a clear contradiction to his public persona and core beliefs. For his family, who were already grieving his untimely and tragic loss, the additional strain and expense was enormous. The story of John Denver is not the only one. The lack of a will has caused similar issues for many other celebrities, such as politician Sunani Bono, whose estate was also hampered by the lack of a will, or music legend Barry White, who left behind several claims and unclear directions. When television host Jill Dando passed away without a will, her entire estate passed to her father, leaving her fiancé with nothing. The author of The Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, Steve Larson, also passed away without a formal will. His father and brother received his entire inheritance, including the rights to the book and the movie, leaving his longtime partner with nothing. In addition, comedian Paul Shane left no will. Instead, his estate was split equally among his 3 children, possibly disregarding any smaller presents or special requests he may have made. Years of legal disputes, financial strain, and resurrected old scars resulted from John Denver's extraordinary wealth, which was supposed to support his family. The absence of a will, a basic piece of paper, caused all of this pain. Even a well-liked celebrity's wealth can cast a long shadow of sadness if it is not properly prepared, as evidenced by the lasting effects on his loved ones and the true cost of an unwritten legacy.